Welcome back, everybody. Good Shabbat. We're going to continue our discussion of the letter of James, part 5. We're going to conclude with chapter 2 and begin chapter 3. Now we begin to see a major difference between the soteriology of James the Just, who was the first bishop of the Jerusalem assembly, who led the Jewish Christians who took over the mantle of Jesus after Jesus' crucifixion. We see this juxtapositioned with Pauline Christology and soteriology. And now in these verses of James, we see James's position, and then we'll look at Paul's position. And you have to keep in mind that the letter of James was almost listed as heretical because it challenges the idea of Pauline soteriology. Soteriology is a philosophy of what saves a soul. So, what is ultimately salvatory to a soul? What is most purifying to one's consciousness so that they may be right with God or experience a type of communion with God? So, let's see what James says. So, this is James' rebuttal to the Pauline argument that faith alone saves. James chapter 2, verses 18 through 21 and 26, I cite here. Someone will say, "You have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I by my works will show you my faith. You believe that God is one, you do well. Even the demons believe and shudder. Do you want to be shown, you senseless person, that faith apart from works is barren? Was not our ancestor Abraham justified by works when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? For just as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is also dead." So James here is making a very strong stance, and you can imagine him preaching this in a very impassioned way to the Jerusalem assembly. He says, "Show me your faith apart from your works, and I by my works will show you my faith." So he's saying there has to be some evidence that what you believe has transformed you. You can't just say, "Oh, I believe in Jesus Christ and I believe in God," and you look all good praying and singing really loud in church. Big deal. That's what James is saying right here. He's saying, I will show you my faith by what I do. In other words, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. Just declaring that you believe something doesn't change your consciousness, and it definitely doesn't change the world. What we do matters. And that is the crux of James's whole idea of what is salvific for a soul, what expands our consciousness and makes it eligible for communion with Godhead. So he's saying that even demons believe in God and Jesus, no big deal. So he's being very blunt here. He's saying that if you say, "I believe in Jesus," and that's all you do, that's all you think that gets you into heaven for free, even demons believe in God and know Jesus' spiritual status. So he's basically saying you're no better than a demon if you're not doing good works in addition to your faith, in addition to your belief. And let's be clear, James isn't saying don't believe in God, don't believe in the teachings of Jesus. He doesn't advocate non-belief. He's just saying that that belief, that faith is dead. It's spiritually dead if you don't do the teachings. And specifically, James says if you don't help the vulnerable, like the widows and the orphans. And then in verses in chapter 2 that we're not covering directly due to time, he says if you don't feed the hungry, if you don't clothe the naked, if you're not doing works, then your religion is worthless, is what he said last week, whenever we were covering verses last week. So he says his idea is that your faith is empty, it's baseless, it's hollow, it's shallow, it's illusory if you have no spiritual works. So he's saying, don't go to the front of the church and be a holy roller and say, oh, I believe in Jesus. James thinks that that is hypocrisy. James thinks that that is the same thing that Jesus criticized whenever the Jewish Pharisees would blow the shofar, the goat horn, the ram's horn, and go, roar, and then they'd say, look, all of you unwise Jewish people, see me giving charity, see me doing this. Essentially, James is giving the same critique here. If you're just shouting from the rooftops that you believe in Jesus to look good, your faith is pretty barren. James is exhorting all of us to be humble, and by doing good things for other people, compassionate actions for the elderly, for the widows, for the orphans, for the hungry, for those that don't have warm clothes in the winter, let your faith be shown by your actions. And you shouldn't strive to be seen either, but it's better that somebody accidentally sees you helping somebody than it is to say, oh, I believe in Jesus, and I would like for you to confess with your lips of your mouth that Jesus is your personal savior and that he died for you. That's a very ineffective way of helping humanity. Our beliefs will not change the world. Our opinions will not change the world. It is our actions based in the teachings of Jesus that will change the world. For just as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is also dead. What a powerful statement. So without the spirit, without God's spirit within us, the body instantly dies, would drop dead. The moment our spirit leaves us, the body is worthless. It's just a pile of 5 elements. Likewise, he's saying that faith is totally dead and without life, without the animating works, without the life-giving works. Faith is basically a moot point. Very powerful statement, and this is why it was almost considered heretical. Martin Luther really wanted to get it tossed out of the Bible, and he wasn't fully successful. So Paul's argument was quite different, and who knows who said what first. But we do know from the Pauline epistles that there was quite a bit of animosity between the Pauline Gentile churches. Well, not even the Pauline Gentile churches, that's not correct. There's a lot of animosity between Paul and the pillars of the Jewish Christian church in Jerusalem, which was James the Just, Peter, and John. So there's a lot of animosity between these leaders, which would obviously create frictions between different church groups, because despite what the church may want you to believe, there wasn't just one church. There are many churches with many different ideas about who Jesus was and what his teachings meant. Many, 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 especially in the beginning, and even today, different church groups are diversifying. But anyhow, Paul was basically saying that works were not needed. The only thing that was needed in Paul, at the end of the day, Paul's Christology and his idea of what saves a soul was that you believe in Jesus and his death and resurrection. That's it. That was what was needed. You don't need anything else. And yes, he did contradict himself at times, and later on, Paul did say that we should do good works. However, the doctrine of Paul was that just mere belief in Jesus was enough to save your soul. And he also cites Abraham for this basis of belief only. Let's read the argument against works and against James. We see it in Romans chapter 4, verses 1 through 5. What then are we to say was gained by Abraham, our ancestor according to the flesh? For if Abraham was justified by works, he has something to boast about, but not before God. For what does the scripture say? Abraham believed God, and it was reckoned him it was reckoned to him as righteousness. Now to one who works, wages are not reckoned as a gift, but as something due. But to one who without works trusts him, who justifies the ungodly, such faith is reckoned as righteousness. So whereas James was saying that Abraham's works were highly purified, he was willing to sacrifice his own son as a divine work. Here, Paul is using a whole other example out of Abraham's life and said that Abraham believed in God, that his progeny would be like the sands in the desert, etc. And because Abraham believed God and what God predicted about Israel, it was reckoned to him as righteousness. So what made Abraham right with God was his belief in what God said, which no Jew would contradict. But now Paul gives the rest of his idea here. To one who works, wages are not reckoned as a gift, but as something due. So whenever you work, you get something in return. It's not a gift. In other words, it's not grace. But to one without works, who trusts him, Jesus, who justifies the ungodly, humanity, such faith is reckoned as righteousness. So when you do the works, you get the wages. It's just a give and take. But Paul is saying that to believe in Jesus and have that purify the ungodly person or the sinful person or humanity in general, that gift is a gift of grace, and it's something special that purifies the heart and soul. That's Paul's philosophy. And essentially, at least in today's world, I don't know how much the world has changed since the days of Paul. I doubt the human heart and consciousness has changed much. Maybe our environments have changed and our science has changed and all that kind of stuff. Political environments have changed. But the way the human mind works is the same. Humanity hasn't changed much. By being part of an organization, by having faith in this spiritual master or that spiritual master, it changes nobody. It changes nothing. I have a wonderful spiritual master. She is a master of millions of people across this planet at this point in history. She is the real deal. And I see hundreds, if not thousands, of my fellow disciples with her that will just say, whenever they make a mistake, oh, it's just God's play. Oh, we just have to believe in Amma and we'll get there. That's her name, the Blessed Woman's name. But she herself would say that just believing in her is insufficient. You have to actually do what she teaches. And like all spiritual masters, Jesus was the same. He says, many will knock on the door and say, Master, Master, and he'll say, I don't know you. Why did Jesus say that? It's apparent that whoever's knocking on the door and calling and saying, Master, Master, that they believe in him. However, he said, go away, for I don't know you. In other words, it's not enough to believe. You have to actually do what the master teaches. Believing that the master is something special doesn't transform our consciousness. It doesn't transform our negative thoughts, our negative words, our negative habits. It means zilch. We have to actually do the teaching. We have to do it daily. We have to do it with awareness, with dedication. We can't stop when we're bored, when we're tired, when we're sick. We have to fight the fight until we're illumined or until death and beyond. That's the reality. So I disagree heavily with Paul. Belief is not enough. We have to do something. We have to act. And it mustn't be just acting for ourselves, as James so aptly expresses. We must do for others. We must go outside of our selfishness, outside of I, me, and mine, and think of we, ours, the whole humanity. The goodness that we perceive within ourselves during meditation and prayer, the joy that we experience whenever we drink the wine, whenever we eat the bread, that joy has to shine out in compassionate action. Otherwise, the religion is worthless. The ritual is worthless. We have to make it happen in the world for other people. So by lifting up people that are in difficult situations around us, even if it's only through a smile, even if it's only through a comforting word, we must do that. We must do spiritual works. Otherwise, just talking about the Bible, what this verse says, what that verse says, or wow, I'm saved because I was dipped underwater and I said I believed in Jesus. There's a difference between belief and there's a difference between belief with works. We must do the work. And sadly enough, in many Christian sects, the modern world, they believe that they only need to believe. As my spiritual master says, they go to church, they worship Jesus, and then they kick the beggar on the way out. I used to work in a restaurant that was surrounded by many churches as a server. And no server wanted to work on Sundays because they knew that after everybody was done praising Jesus, they're going to come and beat on the servers and treat them like crap, like dirt, like slaves, in very degrading ways, as I remember. What did they learn? What did they learn in that 45 minutes or hour in church? They got dressed up in their Sunday best, praised Jesus, and then cursed everybody else, which happens to be what we talk about very soon today. First, we come to this idea. James warns against everyone wanting to be a teacher. You know, so many people want to become spiritual teachers. They want to be seen like this guy. These rock star ministers and televangelists. They just want to be seen. They just want to take your money. They're not really teaching anything of value. They don't want you to do the teaching. They just want you to believe and fill up their coffers. And that person has been awarded. That's what Jesus would say. James chapter 3, verse 1. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers and sisters, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. This was James's teaching. In other words, if we're going to teach something, if we're going to teach the teachings of Jesus, you better well be doing it. If you are teaching the teachings of Jesus, if you are preaching the teachings of Jesus on some stage with a microphone with this fancy suit, for the love of God, sometimes I get up to the altar in my jeans and my t-shirt because I'm not special. And I don't need to be seen on a big screen with some fancy hairdo. Look at my hair today. I have a braid in it to keep the hair out of my eyes. We don't have to be special or look special. What is required of a teacher, what is required of a priest in this apostolic succession that is perpetuated by the home temple, which I do represent, is that you actually attempt to consciously do the probable historical teachings of Jesus. You can't just be a hearer. You can't just talk about it, but you have to do it, and you have to do it daily. You have to work on yourself internally, sincerely trying to eradicate the Yetzer Hara, the negative or selfish inclination of the heart. And you want to put forth and encourage the growth of the Yetzer HaTov, which is the good inclination of the heart. You have to do this every day. Try to purify your heart and your mind, because lebab in Hebrew means seat of the mind. And that goodness, that joy, that ecstasy that you can establish and spread throughout your whole consciousness during prayer and meditation. That joy should spill out to fill the whole world as good thoughts, good words, good deeds, as service to those that are vulnerable in our communities, the widows, the orphans, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, visiting those that are in prisons and in nursing homes and in hospitals. Serving the environment nowadays is very important. God created this earth. Do you think he wants us to destroy it? So do service work for reputable environmental organizations to preserve nature. Otherwise, humanity is going to go extinct. Mother Nature isn't in trouble. Mother Nature will simply just stop supporting humanity, will die, and she'll move on. Right? So we have to do good works. But coming full circle, trying not to go out too far off on a tangent here, in James 3:1, you shouldn't be a teacher unless you're doing. Otherwise, there is divine justice that will come down, or a type of divine judgment. In other language that's common in today's world, you get bad karma. So just standing up on a pulpit just to be seen, just to take people's money, just to be glorified or in the spotlight by people, that develops very bad karma. You should teach from as much of a space of humility as you can. You should be as invisible as you can when you teach spiritually. It's more about setting a good example without wanting to be seen that makes you a good teacher. Getting up there and spouting memorized verses, forcing people to become baptized and to believe in Jesus. That's not it. That's not what James is saying is it. James is saying, if you want to become a teacher, you better damn well be doing the work. Because if you're not doing the work internally and you're telling other people to do it, that's bad karma. That is sinful. It creates a very negative debt to God and to Jesus, the great master Jesus. So those who are teachers that don't do the work will be judged with greater strictness than those people in the world that aren't preachers, ministers, priests, that don't do the work. So there's two classes of people that don't do the work. Ministers that just want to be seen and heard, and people in general that are kind of spiritually apathetic. Of these two groups, the group that will be karmically judged more will be the priests, preachers, and ministers that don't do the work. They tell you to do the work, but they don't do the work themselves. Jesus somewhere in Matthew said, "Cursed are the Pharisees that don't lead the people to heaven." Not only do they close the doors of heaven for themselves, but they close the doors of heaven to everybody else. That same idea is modern Christian preachers. They teach belief, but they don't teach the inherent ideas that Jesus taught or encourage people to actually do the work. Because if people are actually told, are actually shown their real face, I mean, when you do spiritual work, it's very scary. It's very humiliating. It's very embarrassing when you do spiritual work. Whenever you look at yourself and you see the great work that is left to do before you can become spiritually perfected or spiritually illumined, that is very, very humbling. Very, very humbling to see that I still have anger in myself. I still have jealousy in myself. I still have lust. I still have attachment to everything but God. That is very humiliating. And if this dude on the screen would tell his congregation that, if he'd show them the work they have to actually do, trust me, they'd all walk out the door, all thousands of people they show cheering and waving their hands in the audience. They'd all leave. If they knew they had to do something other than just believe, they'd all leave. And this guy wouldn't have 5 Rolls Royces and 3 mansions and money hidden behind his toilet, like Joel Osteen, whatever his name is. They found like all these checks and all this money hidden behind his toilet when the plumber came in. He has so much money he can't even fit it in his bank account. But yet he's not opening the doors of heaven to anybody. He's just interested in what he can get out of it. And I challenge him to call me or have a Zoom session if he can prove it to me otherwise. But people like that will never have a true ecumenical conversation, a true interfaith conversation. So again, it's not that James didn't want more teachers to be proliferating to the world. He didn't want to be the only teacher. It's just that he's saying before you become a teacher, make sure you're doing the work. Otherwise, you're getting yourself into more spiritual debt. And we all have enough of that already. Last verses of the day, it's on taming our tongues. James chapter 3, verses 5 through 10. How great a forest is set ablaze by a small fire. How great a forest is set ablaze by a small fire. And the tongue is a fire. The tongue is placed among our members as a world of iniquity. It stains the whole body, sets on fire the cycle of nature, and is itself set on fire by hell. For every species of bird and beast, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by the human species. But no one can tame the tongue, a restless evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless the Lord and Father, and with it we curse those who are made in the likeness of God. For the same mouth come blessing and cursing. So the tongue is a fire. And I think predominantly what James is talking about here is whenever we use our tongue in anger, or to cut somebody down, or to slander somebody, etc. So usually whenever somebody is attacking us, we can't just keep quiet. And this is one of my vices too, that I'm still currently working on to this day. I have a great sense of justice, and often, especially when I hear somebody else being attacked, I want to step in and be fire and help people. So that's my problem that I'm still working on, is my fiery nature. I need to calm my tongue down too. But here he's talking about people that really speak with anger and cut people down, give slurs against different types of people that are different than you. And what we say, what Jesus said, it's not so much what goes into our mouth as what comes out of our mouth that defiles us. So James is kind of teaching on that basis. What we say can really damage ourselves. Angry words that we spout out really darken us. It really contracts our consciousness. James goes on to say that it stains the whole body. The term or the phrase the whole body is the Greek psyche, because the whole idea of soul was not considered separate from the body. So it stains the whole body. It doesn't just mean your physical body, but it means what is contained in your physical body, which is the mind, the emotions, the soul. So the angry words don't only stain the physical body. Yes, it does make our faces look ugly, because when we're angry, we get our faces all twisted and contorted, that kind of thing. So, but when he says that it stains the whole body was seen as a complex. There's a very complex spiritual constitution that's beyond this conversation today. But whenever he says that an angry tongue is a fire that stains the whole body, it doesn't mean it just stains our physical body, but it stains our mind, what is contained in the physical body, our emotions, it stains our character, it stains our soul, and it stains higher aspects of spirit that are inherent and beyond the soul. So it stains all of us. So James is saying that one of the biggest enemies of spiritual progress, spiritual growth, spiritual illumination, spiritual perfection is our tongue. Keeping our mouth shut is sometimes the best thing we can do. unless it is really a matter of principle, or unless it is really hurting a loved one or a group of people. If it's not a vitally important thing, it's better just to shut your mouth and turn away and pray for the benefit of that person. Because if you're going to retort from a space of sassiness, from a space of anger, from a space of agitation, this just puts more emotional poisoning in the atmosphere around us. So we want to make sure that we're only putting positive energy into our environments and not making a bad situation worse by letting our tongue get out of control. Even if somebody has said something that really does need to be addressed, we can at least leave the area until we've calmed down and we have a grounded, calm, rational, logical response. Don't let somebody push your buttons to the point where you have to lash out. That's what James is saying stains the whole body and all the special stuff that's contained within these envelopes. So he's saying that all of nature can be tamed by humanity, but humanity can't tame his own evil tongue, which is full of deadly poison. So, and that poison doesn't only infect us, it infects everybody around us. With it, we bless the Lord and Father. We say God is great, but we curse those that are made in his image. The reflections of God. We tell God that he's great, but we use our tongue to cut down and demean other people, which are made in the likeness or in the image of God. All that humanity are emanations of God, or little gods, little divine beings. So we're going to tell God the Father that we love you, we praise you, but yet these little mini emanations, these cells in his one body, we're going to curse a part of him. Can we not see the hypocrisy in that? If everything is one, how can we curse the parts and praise the whole? It's not logical, and it takes us away from our spiritual goal. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. Extending this idea to preachers. A lot of Christian preachers will bless God and say how holy this person or that person is that's making nice big donations to the church. But then he's going to curse people that aren't married, homosexuals, other religions are going to hell. All these people are going to hell. A mouth that blesses and curses you can't trust. Only the mouth that blesses and points out the good in people, the good in humanity, is worth listening to. Preachers that say certain people are going to heaven and certain people are going to hell, James is criticizing them right here. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. James is not praising that person. He's saying that they have more spiritual work to do. So the best thing that we could do is hold our tongue whenever we're being attacked, or whenever we think we're being attacked, because sometimes our perceptions are wrong. You know, that's why I always like to talk to people whenever my emotions get stirred up. Usually they get stirred up from a Skype message or from a WhatsApp message or from a text. And I often say, hey, you know, I think I'm misunderstanding you. Can we talk and look at each other face to face? So one problem with our tongue is our misinterpretations of what people are saying. So whether we're misinterpreting or somebody really is coming at us, hold the tongue, step away for a few moments, take a few breaths, work with the pause, and then when we're calm and grounded, respond to the situation. If we are truly advancing spiritually, we will respond to life and not react to life. we will sail through life, float through life, and not have the fight or flight response all the time. So we must use our tongue to uplift others, not to cut other people down. And if people can't listen to reason, then it's best to just have distance from them and pray for their well-being from a distance. I could go on and on about this. But again, this is a very important lesson. Always remember that it is not what goes into your mouth so much as what comes out of your mouth that defiles the soul. That is a true teaching of Jesus. And James is saying the same thing in a different way. The tongue is a fire, and it stains, and it has the ability to stain or defile the whole body and everything it contains: mind, emotion, character, personality, heart, soul, and all the spiritual energies that we develop in ourselves throughout our lifetime. Angry words can make our spiritual bodies and physical bodies like a leaky hose. The more anger that we have, the more little perforations are in the hose, and then you have these little spouts of water coming out everywhere. Our energy no longer has a strong direction, a strong flow, because of these perforations that have been created by the angry reactions we've created. How do we heal this? We have to only have good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Whenever we feel anger, we practice the pause. We walk away until we can come back with a response to the situation, if a response is even needed. Sometimes silence is the best thing you can do in a difficult situation, right? And as it regards criticizing people, don't curse people. My spiritual master always said, even a broken clock tells the right time 2 times a day. Even a broken clock tells the right time 2 times per day. So even people that are very, very bad, very, very evil, if you want to judge them as that, even those people that make a lot of mistakes, they still have the divine within them. They still love their child. They still treat their dog like a goddess, right? Even the worst person with the worst behavior that is hurtful to others, there is good in them. Try to find that good and show it to them and honor that good. And you'll be surprised how much recognizing the good in a bad person can change them. If you want to transform somebody, do the work yourself first, and then walk up to that person and say, hey, I really love how you helped that person today. You really made a difference. Or, you know, that idea you gave today in work, it was really efficient. I wish I would have thought of that myself. That was awesome. Try complimenting the one good thing a difficult person does and see how that changes the energy in the room. I'll end it at that. Let's do the second blessing. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother of the Universe, help me today, this week, for the rest of my life, to watch my tongue. Help me to remember that when I speak in anger or in a reactionary way, that it defiles my body and my spiritual constitution. Help me to practice the pause and to respond more and more to all the stimulus in my life. May I bring peace to difficult situations rather than making it worse. Amen, amen, amen. Good Shabbat, everybody. I'll see you next Friday. Thank you so much for coming.